Hi there guys, welcome to another C# tutorial. Today's tutorial is about for loops. This tutorial and the next few will be all about for loops. This tutorial will explain the syntax of the statement. The next set of tutorials will be concerned with solving problems because I don't want to focus on the syntax of the language. I want to show you how to use the language to solve issues. So, what is the idea of for loop? The idea of for loop is very simple. You want a number of statements to get repeated, executed a number of times. Okay, so how do you write a for loop? Usually, you would write something like this: for, and then int I equals 0, I smaller than 10, I plus plus, and we will get into what this means. Okay, system console write, let's put a hash symbol, there we go, and system console readline. Okay, so first we need to know what this line means. Basically, the for means there is a number of statements that are going to be repeated. This is what it means, and these statements lies between these two brackets. Okay, I think this is obvious. Next, what do we have? We have int I. So here we are defining a variable. Okay, you can define a variable inside here, or you could write int I semicolon and put something like this. Okay, both are valid. There's a few differences, but for now let's assume we are going to use this format. Now what do we see here? Here I equals 0 means we are going to start counting from 0. Next, what do we have? We have semicolon, and then we have I smaller than 10, which means is that keep executing this loop, okay, or keep executing these statements as long as I is smaller than 10. Now we have what? We have this part, I plus plus, which means I equal I plus 1, which means increase I by 1. Okay, so this is the meaning of this line. And then you open the bracket and you write the hash symbol. Okay, so let's speak about what happens when you execute the code. Let's execute it first to see what's gonna appear. As you can see, there's a number of hashes here, right? Now, so what's going on here? Basically, the compiler starts. Maybe I should perform a debug to make you see what's happening. Okay, so we have here, we have I equals 0. Let me just move the watch window so you can see it at all times. I, there you go. Put this one here, okay. And the value here, just a second. Okay, so now you can see the variable I, okay. Yeah, so right now it's going to execute this part. Here we are initializing our counter, okay, so this means we are start counting from 1, okay, and then we go to checking the value of the counter. So 0 is obviously smaller than 10. This value is true, so we go to the content of the loop. We write a single hash on the screen, and you could see it here. Okay, there you go. This is a single hash, just present. Okay, so after completing that, what happens? We get into this part. So this statement says this: I want the value of I to be equal to the old value, which is right now it's 0. Add 1 to it. So 0 plus 1 equals 1, and this will be placed into I. So let's execute this and see. And you can see I now is 1. You can see it here in the watch. Okay, and then again we will check now 1 against 10. it's smaller, evaluates to true, we get into this statement, execute it. What do we see here? We see the second hash, and so on. We execute. Okay, so this 3 hash, 4 hashes, 5 hashes. As you can see, the statement gets executed again and again and again, right? Okay, and okay, this is going to be 9. Now, the last time here, we are going to run this. What do we get? We get I equal 10. Now, 10 is not smaller than 10, it's equal. So this condition evaluates to false, and check this out, we exit the loop. Okay, and if we look at this one, we find that the program printed 10 hashes. So now we know the job of this program is to display 10 hashes. Okay, so far this is very easy, very straightforward, right? I hope the idea is clear to you now, how does the for loop works. Now, instead of this, let's say you want to display 1000 hashes. All you have to do, change the condition of the counter here. So now if we run this, you can see these are 1000 hashes. Okay, and yeah, it's as simple as that. Okay, so there are a number of things here to notice. You can see here I've said I equal I plus 1. This could be replaced with I plus a plus. I plus plus means increase the content of I by 1. Okay, it has the same effect of the previous statement. There's a few differences. You could write it I plus a plus or plus a plus I. There are a few differences, we'll get into that later on, but for now just focus on the general meaning. Plus plus I or I plus a plus, it means increase the content of our variable I by 1. Okay, if you have variable j, you could say j plus a plus will have the same effect. Let's try it out and see, and there we go. Now, well, you don't have to write the increment of the variable like this. You could write it a little bit differently. So first let's change this to 10. Now let's say I equal I plus 2 instead of 1. Okay, and let's run this. So you can see now we have 5 hashes, not 10. Why? Because here we were counting from 0 but increasing the value of I by 2. So 0 plus 2 equal 2, 2 plus 2 equal 4, and so on. So this will be a total of 5 times. Okay, I reaches 10, but basically it started increasing by 2. Okay, you can make it increase by 3, minus 5, and so on. You can even neglect the part where you increase the variable. Okay, and in that case you would get some form of infinite loop. You can see the computers is just keep printing. Okay, so we don't want to do that, but for now I just want to show you that you can change the way the variable is being increased. Same is true for this part where you are checking the value of the variable. Okay, and also same is true for this part. Okay, we will get more into these later on, but for now let us just practice how to use the for loop to solve a number of problems. Now, what kind of problems can we solve using for loops? Well, the simplest problems is counting. Let's say someone tells you, well, I want your program to count from 1 to 100. Okay, so you could write this. This means that your program started counting from 0 and it's going to stop when it reaches 100. And you could write something like this. I plus comma. Okay, there we go. And yeah, so let us try this out. And you can see that what we have got here is from 0 to 99. 100 is not included. If you want to include 100 in the result, you could say I is smaller than or equal to 100. Okay, in that case, when you run, you can get something like this. Well, this is an easy example, right? Now, Someone might ask you, well, I don't want to see the numbers from 0 to 100. I want to, for example, find the multiplication table for number 3. So how do you do that? Well, this is very easy. Basically, we'll have 1 equals, okay, so here we want to find the multiplication table. Now, what we need to do, int v equals 3 multiplied by I. Now you might be wondering why 3 multiplied by I. Well, I will be changing to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? So if you multiply our counter, which is if you multiply our counter by the value 3, okay, you will have all the possible combinations that represent what? Represent our multiplication table for number 3. Okay, so here we calculated the multiplication table, or actually not the whole multiplication table, we just calculated one entry for the multiplication table. The whole for loop is calculating the full multiplication table of number 3. Now we need to display the result. How do you do that? You just say system console write line. Now we need to say 3 x plus I equals, and the result is v, right? Okay, so this line of code will display only one value. When I is 1, it's going to display 3 multiplied by 1 equals, and the result. When I is 2, it will display 3 multiplied by 2 and equals to the result, and so on. So let's try this out. And you can see the value here. It's very easy, right? Okay. Now, you might be asking, well, what if I want my program to be a little bit more advanced? Instead of fixing the value, I want the user to enter the multiplication, which multiplication table he requires. So this is also very easy. You could just define a variable here, int m equal int dot parse system console read line. Okay, so now instead of multiplying by 3, we will multiply by m. Okay, and here this is going to be m. Okay, and it's as simple as that. Basically, we need a little bit of friendly message. So system console, you could say write, enter the number. Okay, not that obvious, but anyway. So let us try this out. So enter the number. Let's say 4. You get the multiplication table for 4. Let's say you want 9. You get the multiplication table for 9. And if you would like, you can say 100. And you get the multiplication table for 100. If you would like to, whatever, this is its multiplication table. Okay, so it's very easy. So how, now the point here, the point to remember, you might be asking, okay, so now I know I should, how do I know that I am supposed to use a for loop? Okay, this is the thing. When you are trying to solve a problem, you need to first identify the part where the operation gets repeated. That part is where you should use the for loop. So now, in a multiplication table, what part gets repeated all the time? Well, there is a number multiplied by 1. There's a number, that same number gets multiplied by 2, that same number gets multiplied by 3, that same number gets multiplied by 4, and so on. Okay, so since these operations are basically the same, okay, they are just being repeated with different value. This means you could solve the issue using a for loop. Okay, you just need to recognize the pattern. Okay, now let us well move to a more to another example. And instead of let's say finding the multiplication table, let's say you want to display even or odd number, identify if a number is odd or even. Now the question is, how do you identify that? We did that previously. Basically, we would enter the number and we would check an if statement if m modulus 2 equals 0. Okay, then we would say system console right line even, right, else system console right line odd, right? So far so good. So let us test this out. Let's say 3, this is odd, and 10, this is even. This is easy, and you remember that from our previous example. Now, what if someone asked you, well, write a program to display odd numbers between 0 and 10? Well, you already know the formula that could tell you if a number is odd or even, right? So what you could do is this. Take the first number, okay, let's say 0. Apply it to the formula. If the evaluation is true, say that it's even. Otherwise, say it's odd. Now, if you get the next number, which is 1, you could apply the same formula to it, and you could figure out if it's odd or even. You could get the third number, apply the same formula, uh, and so on, right? So here you are repeating this check, basically. Okay, so instead of this, I'm going to change it a little bit. Okay, so for int I equals 0, I smaller than 10, I plus a plus. This is one way to do that. By the way, you could just, put an if statement, just a single statement after the for, and the for will uh, work on that part only. But basically here we are using, same idea of brackets. So now, if I modulus 2 equals 0, then I would say else system console right line would say I is even. Oops, even. Okay, and here it's gonna be system console right line I is odd. Okay, so now let's run this out. You can see 0 is even, 1 is odd, 2 is even, 3 is odd, and so on. So you can see it can tell you the case for each number. What if the question was, well, give me only the odd numbers? Well, basically, all you have to do is make a check on the odd number. So I modulus 2 equal 1, right? And we don't need that part. Just run this code, and now you can get all the odd numbers. And actually, if you are required to get all the odd numbers between 0 and 100, you could, just change the condition, and you will get all these odd numbers. Okay, this is one way to do it. Another way, which is much simpler, is, well, what's the common thing between odd numbers? Well, basically they start from 1, and the difference between each odd number and another is 2. So you can see now, if I run this code, I will get the same result, right? But here I didn't use if statement. I rather used another fact about odd numbers, that each consecutive odd numbers have a difference of 2. Now, if you would say, okay, I want to find all the even numbers, well, you start from 0, each consecutive two each two consecutive even numbers have a difference of 2, and you can see the idea also works. Okay, so the thing here, there are multiple ways to solve each problem. Okay, and these all work with a for loop, so there is no one correct answer in programming. There are multiple correct answers. Okay, so yeah, I try to think about the problems that you have solved previously or someone solved. Maybe you'll find different answers. This would be a way for you to train yourself. Okay, so now we have just spoken about, well, displaying the numbers, displaying the multiplication table, evens and odd, even and odd numbers. Now, what if someone asks you, well, I want you to display numbers between 0 and 100 in descending order. Well, in that case, well, here we started from 0. Well, basically what he's saying now, you need to start from 100, right? And basically you would want to display them in descending order, so your counter is decreasing by 1. Okay, so you could write it this way. Now the problem here, you need to pay attention. Okay, here I started from 100, so this condition does not evaluate to true and you will exit the loop right away. So here this condition need to be reversed or something like this. Okay, so keep counting as long as I is greater than 0. Keep decreasing the value of I by 1. Okay, so let us try this out. You can see, yeah, let me just scroll. You can see it started from 100, and yeah, it went in descending order to 1. Okay, this is one way to solve it. Okay, we just reverse the parameters and the conditions. Okay, what if you don't want to do that? Okay, what if you want to have something like this? You want to keep your original counter but display the numbers between 100 and 0. Okay, you want to display them in descending order. Well, basically you could just write something like this, just a simple mathematical formula. So here, when you say 100 minus I, so first I is what? I is 0, so 100 minus 0 is also 100. Next I is 1. 100 minus 1, which equals what? It equals 99, then 98, and so on. Okay, so you could run this and you find out that it works. Okay, no problem. Well, another technique that you could use to solve this problem, int y equal what? 100. You could display y over here. Okay, and you would say y equal y minus 1. Okay, so here you have this counter counting from 0 to 100. However, this is a number you are displaying get decreased. Okay, so yeah, this will also have the same effect. Now the point is, I want you to see for yourself that I want you to know that there are always multiple ways to solve a problem. This is why I'm giving you these examples. Okay, so now we know that we can display numbers in reverse order. We know that we can display numbers in ascending order, no problem. We can display multiplication tables, odd, even numbers, and so on. This is very easy, right? So now let's try to find out a little bit of a useful math program. Let's say you are required to calculate the interest after a year. So you have the total money in the bank, you have the interest rate, okay, and you want to find the money after a year. So how do you do that? Well, basically you would say float total equal, let's say you have $1,000. Okay, and float, let's say interest. The interest rate is what? It's 0.01. Okay, so let's say it's 1%, right? Yeah, something like this. Okay, now what we need to do is calculate interest for 1 year. Now a year consists of before that, how do you calculate the interest for single month? You need to know the interest for single month in order to calculate for 1 year. How do you do that? Well, basically float month int equals, it's the total multiplied by what? Interest, right? Now this is what? This is the value for 1 month, and the value of interest for 1 month get added to your total. So you could say total equal total plus month interest, something like this, right? Now since we are calculating this for 1 year, you could just say for I equals 0, I is more than 12, and I plus plus. Okay, and now we need just need to display the total. So system console write line, the total after a year is, come on, oops, and total, here we go. And you could run this and see that this is your total after a year. Okay, so you, as you have seen, it's very easy. We identified first how to calculate the interest for single month, okay, how to update the total for a single month, and this process gets repeated for what? For 1 year. But if you want to find the interest for 2 or 3 or 10 years, well, basically you could say plus. Okay, so now this big for loop here, the one over here, would calculate interest for 10 years, right? This one is used to calculate interest for 1 year, as you can see, and this part is used to calculate interest for 1 month. So this is 1 month, repeated 12 times give you 1 year, repeated 10 times give you 10 years. Okay, so this is gonna be 10 years, something like this. You could just display and see that after 10 years this amount of money becomes something like this. Okay, so it's very straightforward, very easy. Yeah, I think that will be all for today. We will have more examples about the for loop in the next tutorial. We won't take anything new unless we stayed on that for about 7 or 8 tutorials, so it will take some time. That will be all. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Okay, bye bye.